there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
Macedonian President Gordana Siljanovska-Davkova handed the mandate to form a new government to VMRO leader Hristijan Mickoski on Thursday, June 6. He now has 20 days to form a government, but, according to media reports, probably has everything ready to announce that new government much earlier, having secured votes to reform the new government on Friday, June 7. All eyes will be on that new government once it is formed to see if it can deliver. In the meantime, there seems to be elections everywhere. The Bulgarians held yet another parliamentary election on June 9th, their 344th election in 3 years, or so it seems. The EU had its parliamentary elections over the past week. French President Macron has dissolved parliament and is calling for early elections at the end of June and early July. The UK's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has called early parliamentary elections for July 4. I don't know if that's a birthday gift to the United States or not. We'll discuss all of this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oro Valley, Arizona.
And this is Cvetin in pretty hot Skopje, Macedonia. I mean, not like Arizona levels hot, but...
Not like Arizona. No, we hit 38 on 100, 38 on 100 Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius on Monday, the 28th of May, I think, Memorial Day. And we haven't stopped since then. It's been anywhere 38 to 43, 44 every day, so no end in sight. So
we are at around 34, 33, but we have an end in sight. There is a forecast of that will cool off for a few weeks, and then we'll see what happens.
Stay tuned to the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast for more weather. All right. Well, speaking of how hot it is, the VMRO seems to be on a hot streak right now. They've just got things lined up. They're going to have a formal coalition with Vlen and Znam, I believe. They probably have. I mean, I see the media, people talking to the media every day about this is the government. I can't remember who it was. I just saw this briefly. He said they were going to form the government by June 19 or 20 or so. And which is more than within the 20-day time period. I'm liking what I'm seeing. What do you say?
Yeah, it's looking pretty solid, pretty good. Everything is coming up. VMRO, we have easy negotiations, easy talks with both the Albanian and the Macedonian partner, both with Vlen and Znam. Very light concessions being made. So VMRO is going to give to the Albanians maybe 2 important ministries and 2 far less important ministries, some positions of deputy ministers, and they gave one of the smaller parties in the Albanian bloc the speakership. Now this obviously makes sense from a VMRO position because it's just one person with a small office, and it's not like a large department which this party was expecting. But this was the one issue which obviously SDSM and Levica seized on, like you were willing to start a war in 2017 when we were going to elect an Albanian as speaker. Now you're accepting another Albanian as a speaker. The new speaker made... so he was closely watched by SDSM and Levica. He was using Albanian during the swearing-in ceremony. And then because the oldest member of parliament who was swearing him in as temporary speaker was also Albanian, so it was her decision to start with the Albanian language. So this scored him some nationalist points with the Albanians and some criticism among Macedonians, gave Levica something to talk about. And then he was, during an interview, he said that his homeland, his fatherland is Kosovo. He probably meant to say that his father was born in Kosovo, so this was also seized by the left. But it's okay. It's initial. Mickoski called on him to apologize. He kind of explained his positions. Nothing major. And Znam will get like 2 ministries. One of them important, the Justice Ministry. And VMRO will hold everything else. They will hold Interior, Foreign Affairs, Finance, Defense. They will hold the newly created Ministry of Energy and Mining. They will hold the digital transformation. They will hold one of the 2 like civil ministries, healthcare and education. VMRO will hold education, and SDSM and Vlin, sorry, will hold healthcare. Probably Arben Taravari will resign as Gostiver mayor to hold this position.
And he's actually a physician.
Yeah, he's a pretty solid
Yeah.
doctor. He's specialized in what's it like one of these degenerative elderly diseases. Crap.
Like Alzheimer's or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yes,
Yeah,
he's an expert
interesting.
in one of those things. Which
I may have to see him soon.
Yeah, we're all getting there. Ahmeti, he may, have Ahmeti, because we've all long been speculating that Ahmeti is one of those. He's shaking pretty noticeably.
Well, that would be, yeah, the one for him is Parkinson's that's been rumored, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one Taravari
Yeah.
is an expert in.
Yeah. I've had some friends I've talked to over here, Macedonians in the diaspora, that have met with Taravari and said he's as leadership within the ethnic Albanian parties in Macedonia go, he's a decent guy. So.
Well, he did that betrayal of the opposition when he joined with the government, and they become nationalist when they're in the opposition. They make nationalist moves and comments, and then but at the moment we're seeing everybody in the government lining up to kiss the ring, prepared to work with VMRO, because VMRO obviously dwarfing everybody. So Vlin is like 4 parties. DUI, we are more and more realizing it's their coalition is like DUI, and then 3 additional parties, 2 Albanian, 1 Turkish, or 2 Turkish parties. It's a whole mess in their coalition as well. So it's like one colossus, and then SDSM has like 15 seats, and they're on the verge of losing votes from their smaller coalition partners, the Liberals and the NSDP. So it's one colossus, one party above with 15 seats, and everybody else is below 10 seats. And VMRO can practically do what they want in this parliament. And this is where we had the first interesting development. So VMRO wanted to have a vote on a proposal to reorganize the government. Mm-hmm. Some of the proposals make sense, like abolish or take powers from, especially from the economy ministry, and give it like foreign trade goes to the foreign ministry, mining and energy becomes a separate department because Mickoski wants to focus on it more. Labor is taken from labor and welfare and is given to the economy ministry. Welfare will be rearranged to focus more on demographics, which is a pressing issue. So, some conservative, some common sense changes. But to do this, VMRO needed 80 votes, or 81, depending on how we count, a 2/3 majority. So what they did was they were talking with Levica. Levica offered to give them the votes they need because VMRO, Vlen, and Znam together have about 78 seats. Mickoski already said that he has 3 more votes. He did not disclose where from. Is it the Liberals and the NSDP leaving SDSM? Is it the Turkish parties leaving DUI? He did not say which is the other source of votes. We're going to Parliament. We have a late night session to discuss this important legislation because Mickoski wants to start the government with a completely reformed government, with a clean slate, with new ministries.
And that was on Friday, the 7th, I believe.
I think so, yeah. And DUI were very loud about the government is not legitimate, it does not have the legitimate Albanian party in it. They were sending letters to the international community, which apparently did not care all that much about their objections. They were talking about radicalization. And then all of a sudden we get to a late night vote at 2:30 in the morning. And DUI have a meeting with VMRO, and it's very interesting there. They have people like Menduk Taci join this meeting, along with DUI, a long-time friend of Mickoski and or of VMRO, coalition, former coalition partner of VMRO. And in the end, 8 people from DUI, including Menduk, including the 2 Turkish members of parliament, and 5 DUI members, join with VMRO and Vlen and Znam and vote this thing into law. So we get to actually 10, more than 8, 10 I think, people. So a significant number of DUI, but not all of them. And then one of their coalition partners, Ziadin Sela, who has 4 seats, did not join in this vote. And it was a huge mess. Is this now, did VMRO cut a deal with DUI? Will they stop, refrain from investigating Ali Ahmeti, Artan Grubi for corruption? Is this now a new coalition? Will they ask to join the government shortly after? For one thing, it definitely stopped DUI attacks on the government, that it's allegedly legitimate, because, you can't accuse the government of being illegitimate and then vote for it, help it restructure. And they're not going to vote for confidence in the government, but they helped the winning parties reform the government and, help them make their coalition deal come true. And then we have, VMRO did not want to press the advantage with either against Vlen, when they practically took a lot of seats from the Albanian camp, or now with DUI voting for them. They're being dignified, aloof on this issue, not commenting much. Today, some of them began quietly announcing to the public that, listen, we had the votes with the Turks and other parties splitting off from DUI. So DUI panicked, and they didn't want it to look like their coalition is collapsing so soon. Practically on the first vote in the parliament. So soon.
In other words, it'll take longer.
Yeah. So they decided to vote for this in a larger group, and in exchange, DUI will get some kind of a small commission that will examine which public institutions have hired enough Albanians. Is there a rightful representation of Macedonians and Albanians, which actually VMRO people say, listen, it will actually even help us. VMRO wants to abolish the legal requirement when you hire Albanians, hire public servants, that you have X many Albanians, which was subject of an interesting New York Times article, if you notice this, just after the election.
I remember reading that, yes.
It was super strange. A guy came just to report on how Macedonians register as Albanians to be employed in the public sector and vice versa. So DUI got very little out of this deal. They legitimized the government. They gave away their right to act as a radical force for nationalism against the Albanian coalition in government. And they got something that may actually help VMRO in the near future put an end to this sham hiring of people in the public sector. So it's very interesting development. It's not as much drama, smells like compromising, but also pretty interesting, very smooth sailing for the government, it looks like.
Well, okay, great analysis there, good information for our listeners. And a couple of things. Number one, just starting with what you just said, not so much drama. That's actually a good thing. There is far too much drama going on in every country's political system. Yours, mine, everybody's. And lowering the temperature and less drama, I think, is good for everybody, to be honest. I do think this probably does signal the beginning of the end for DUI eventually splitting up. As I've always said and always written about, and we've talked about it many times on this podcast, the ethnic Albanian parties in Macedonia are cult of personality. And once the leader dies or is damaged, the party tends to split up. And whereas, again, with SDSM and VMRO, you may not like what they stand for, you may not like what they say, but they've got very different and definable party platforms, and they have had since the beginning of modern-day Macedonia as a republic. But the Albanians have always been, first and foremost, the Albanian leadership, the Albanian parties have been, what's in it for us, which is an unfortunate position to take, I think. It should be what is good for the people of Macedonia, including ethnic Albanians and everybody else. If they want to put the ethnic Albanians on a higher pedestal, okay, fine. That's what they're about. But it should always be what's good for everybody, because I hate to use this phrase, it's trite, we're all in this together. Okay, fine. But I do think this is kind of the signals the beginning of the end of Dewey and Ali Ahmeti, and good riddance to him, and Artan Grubi. I think the internationals have always known. They've always, Angela Aguilar, the U.S. ambassador, knows that Ali Ahmeti and Artan Grubi are corrupt, and they resisted putting them on their so-called blacklist for a long time. And I think this gives the U.S. Embassy, at least, a bit of a breather in seeing that the people spoke and turned these people out, and now they may be reluctant to actually put them on the so-called blacklist, assuming that, Ahmeti is going to drop dead one day soon, and Artan Grubi might be implicated in various scandals and things like that. So that's all good, I think. On that New York Times article was very interesting for listen. Maybe if we have a link, maybe we can find it and put that in the show notes. That would be good. Basically, it was talking about, over here we call it affirmative action. I think the rest of the world calls it positive discrimination. This idea that you hire people based on, certain immutable characteristics, like the color of your skin, which, again, to quote the British intellectual and author Douglas Murray, your skin color is one of the least interesting things about you. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing with your ethnicity. The question is, who do you want? Do you want air traffic controllers that are competent and know what they're doing, manning the air traffic controls tower, or do you want them to hire people based on their ethnicity? I think we all know the answer to that. At least I hope so. Yeah. That's the way to run a country. And you mentioned it might be a good thing for VMRO with Ali Ahmeti or Dewey having this commission to examine the various state institutions, ministries, etc., to see, okay, do we have the right ethnic balance or things like that? Well, okay, screw the ethnic balance. It's about who is competent to do this job in this particular ministry, in this particular commission, in this particular sector, etc. We'll see where that goes. That's interesting. Yeah. But again, I do think it's beginning of the end for Dewey. I want to go back. You mentioned. I'm very curious because I haven't seen or read or heard anything about Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Finance, etc. Who are going to be some of these people? I don't know. I don't know a lot of these people anymore. I've only met with Mickoski once. Nice enough, good enough meeting. It was, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something like that. But I'll be honest, I'm impressed with what he's saying and what he's doing. I was reading an article earlier today about we were talking about mining and energy, and Mickoski's an engineer. I don't is he a civil engineer or
energy electronics. He was a professor at he's a professor still active at the University for Electrotechnical Sciences.
Well, okay, good. Well, I was reading this about energy and that he was talking about renewables and getting Macedonia to be self-sufficient and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And two things he said in this interview, which I thought were something that the public needed to hear. He says, quick results in energy are not feasible, which is absolutely true. You cannot just turn these things around on a dime. And it's kind of like, taking a step back, we, the Americans, are the ones to blame for giving you Macedonians and the rest of the world this stupid idea of the first 100 days, of an administration. You can't do anything in the first 100 days of an administration except put your people in place and get your feet wet, so to speak, and start to get to work. But that's what everybody's going to be doing and looking at this government first 100 days. So we're looking at the end of September. So just after Independence Day in Macedonia, which this year it's going to be lit,
Yeah.
as the kids say. It's going to be a grand old party. But yeah, it's going to take them a while to do things. I'm glad he said that quick results are not possible in the energy sector, and that applies to a lot of other sectors in the country as well. So, kind of preparing the people for what to expect, which is good.
Today he announced a major windmill investment, wind power. He said 1 terabyte. Now, I'm guessing this is like installed capacity, and when you do solar, you have to divide it by 7 times to get to the actual, comparable installed capacity in coal or gas. I'm not sure. Wind is stronger, actually. Wind is better than solar, but I still think it's like you have to cut it in half. But even a third of that, like 300 gigawatts, I guess. I don't know. That's okay. That's nothing to scoff at.
Right.
So that's one investment, and like a private business, private investment. It will take obviously years until it's built. On the other hand, he announced like a major investment, a loan from, we are assuming, Hungary of 1 billion euros. It will probably go to reprogram the loans we'll have to take for Bechtel. So this will be much easier loan than the commercial loans we would get to pay off the State Department and their just to leave us in peace for a few years. This is our render unto Caesar contract, I guess. Extortion, like protection money we are paying.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what else major could break, like in terms of economic development in the country. Maybe approve some mining contracts. Maybe just like resuming some infrastructure construction on the highways, of the Chinese highways, and actually beginning the Bechtel highway contract, actually working on it, which the previous government was supposed to be working on. This could be a shot in the arm if this money were actually end up with actual workers and construction companies in the country. So that would also be welcome. Some competently executed infrastructure would be interesting to have. Digitalization would be a big focus, but making public administration move faster, I'm not sure if it brings economic benefits immediately, except that bunches of people are working in the digital sector privately without the government being involved here.
Good.
Yeah, that's a booming industry in the country. What to expect in terms of people? So there are several people competing for several similar departments, so we are not sure who gets what. So we have Alexander Nikolovsky, Timcho Mucunsky, and Vladimir Misailovsky, and possibly even Antonio Miloševsky, although he withdrew himself, going after the foreign ministry, the defense ministry, and then possibly the interior ministry or public or infrastructure, which will become important if we start working on these highways. So they're like passing these departments between themselves, and we're still not sure who gets what of them. So this is why we still don't have like clear announcements from the big, heavy hitters, the people who are the deputy vice presidents of the party. Dui will have Taravari as healthcare minister, as we said. Vesna Yanovska as education minister. The Albanians will get demographic ministry, even though it was assumed that VMRO will get it initially. So yeah, I mean, there are like definitively known people for like agriculture, but you don't have like that. They're not that important. Digitalization, we know the names, but of the main people in the party, this is the situation. They're still like considering and reconsidering interior, foreign, defense, which is like a proxy foreign ministry, and transportation. Kovački is also in play for one of these positions. Dragan Kovački, retired colonel who was leading the party list in the 3rd district. But there is still no definite, clear announcement who goes where and who does what of these
Right.
guys. So,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Well, we will wait and see. The other thing I just wanted to touch on was in the same interview I was reading with Mickoski. He said, he was talking about the rule of law. He says, without the rule of law, there is no development. This is the first pillar. Double standards are not possible. The law must be upheld. And that is, and yet he's saying all the right things, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. He's saying all the right things. Will he do those? I hope so. I pray he does, because that's what's needed. I mean, people are going to invest, foreigners are going to invest in Macedonia if the rule of law is there and they know that they can expect what to expect, So anyway, that's a good thing. So, and what you're talking about, some of these people here just at the end, we don't know who they are. Hopefully they're competent. We want them to be competent and less drama. I think that's good for everybody.
There is a lot of experience built in VMRO,
Yeah.
so
Good.
from the previous government, so that won't be a big problem. We'll have issues to look out for example, the drama from our last podcast with Siljanovska not using the N-word during her swearing in ceremony.
yeah.
She has stopped poking the Greek bear, so she's now mostly reverted to using our country, this country, and emojis, which is uninspiring. She's today in Berlin at this Ukraine confab with Scholz and Zelensky. She's actually standing right next to them for the family photo. So she will probably be trying to be the good cop in this situation, and we'll see how Mickoski fares on the same issue when he will be sworn in. Whether he will say North Macedonia, he won't say North Macedonia, that's pretty obvious. What kind of reaction there will be from the Greeks. He said that the government will be using in writing, in official documents, the N-word, but we're now phrasing this as human rights, as right not to be compelled to speech, that we don't say North Macedonia in public appearances, and he's insisting that this includes the swearing-in ceremony. He will have his own foreign event when he goes to Washington on the 8th of July for the NATO summit. And the Greeks are announcing that they will make a big fuss out of this whole thing at NATO, whether they'll be able to with all the drama in Ukraine and the European elections and in the Middle East, whether they will manage to make this an issue during the NATO conference remains to be seen. And there will be another drama, breaking news. I was just checking Twitter while you were speaking. Hunter just got sentenced.
I just saw that. Convicted on all 3 felony charges.
It's going to be fun. So.
You heard it here, folks. Breaking news on the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. Although I don't know how many people follow the news like we do.
Get their breaking news from us.
We're slightly weird. We're very weird in that we're addicted to the news. And this isn't going to go out for a couple of hours. By the way, today is June the 11th. Yes, this actually is episode number 175. Last time I said it was 175. I lied. This is the real episode 175 of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. So yes, going. Let's just kind of finish up with that and the international stuff that's going on that affects. Although the Hunter Biden trial, I don't think affects Macedonia per se. Yeah. Although it does affect the Biden family and the octogenarian walking dead man who is President Biden.
He's not well.
No, he is not well. I don't know if you saw that clip from last night, Monday night, where he just froze up at some event with the cackling hyena, Kamala Harris, and others. So yeah, that anyway, we can set that aside. But yes, so we've got the NATO confab on July 8th. It's the 75th anniversary of NATO. If Mitsotakis wants to make that a big deal, that is a gift, beautifully wrapped for Vladimir Putin at a NATO conference. So the question, in my mind at least, becomes, how are his other counterparts in the other countries and Jens Stoltenberg going to say, look, dude, just set this aside. Don't make a big deal about it. We got, the world is quite literally burning, and you want to talk about the lack of the utterance of a single adjective. That's what you want to focus on. Okay, if that's the hill you want to die on, okay. But, so we got that. We've got, well, on July 4, America's Independence Day, 248 years. Also, Rishi Sunak has foolishly, in my opinion, decided to call parliamentary elections in the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer is going, Labour is going to win. The question is by how much. Because of the disaster that Macron had in the EU parliamentary elections, he's called early elections for June 30 and the second round on July 7. I'll tell you, July is going to be one hell of a month. And
every month is one hell of a month.
Yeah, and the Marie Le Pen's party, although she's not the leader of it, it's
some
Bardella.
fancy-looking guy. Okay.
Yeah, some young Gordon Bardella, something like that. Anyway, they're going to win. So that's going to be he's going to be facing a new parliament there. Bulgarians just had their elections. Again, I said the 344th election in 3 years. It's maybe not quite that much, but it's literally, I think, the sixth election in 3 years.
At least sixth, yeah.
Yeah, Borisov Boyko Grb his party won the most votes. He'll get to form the government, but as we were talking about before we started podcasting, the question is, can they form a government?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the additional issue of they're going to still hold fast to their essential veto over Macedonia starting EU accession talks, unless the Macedonians include the Bulgarians in the constitution, etc. So all of this and more, then, of course, the American presidential elections, not just the American presidential elections, but, I mean, there's so much going on here. We've got the entire United States Congress, the lower House of Representatives, up for election in November, a third of the Senate. Who controls the House is very important to who wins the presidency, whether it's Joe Biden / Kamala Harris, or there's still a 15-20% chance, I think, that the Democrats could dump Biden at the election, at the Democrat National Convention, which is going to be lit as well, given everything that's going on in Israel, vis-a-vis Gaza, and the protesters, etc. So it's, I need a drink. It's only 8:40 in the morning here, so.
Hey, at least things are happening. I hope so. I mean, we'll see. I mean, the elections in the EU are not moving the needle on the parliament that much.
Yeah, sure.
But it's important for the effect it's having in the individual countries. We already have the Netherlands about to elect a proper right-wing government.
Yes.
Which will be very strongly anti-enlargement. I was joking that we and the Bulgarians, we should ask the Dutch to immediately announce a veto for Macedonia, and so that we can stop our argument between ourselves, which is going on too long and is beginning to have an effect in person-to-person relations, which shouldn't have.
Exactly. And I think this is something important. I wrote about this in my most recent column. Mike Zafarovsky, who is a native Macedonian, but his family immigrated to the United States when he was 15. He went up through the ranks. He became CEO of Motorola, one of the largest tech companies in the world. He was back in Macedonia in May for Macedonia 2025 summit and was interviewed. And he says, talking about economic growth in Macedonia, he said, I think Macedonia can get to 5% economic growth with or without being in the EU. Now, he went on to say, I think the EU is a great club. I might disagree with him on some aspects of that, but his point was, Macedonia, if Macedonians put their minds to it, and if the government does what it says it is going to do, the new government, Macedonia can reach 5% growth, even without being in the EU. And then you set all this EU stuff aside. I mean, everybody keeps saying, the internationals and the left and the Albanian parties in Macedonia keep saying, there is no alternative, be in the EU. And Mike, I think, blew that away. And here he is, a native Macedonian, a very successful businessman, and who has worked in the private sector all his life, saying you can reach 5% economic growth without being in the EU, whereas all of these ass-achingly stupid diplomats in the State Department and the EU say, no, you have to be in the EU. They've never worked a day of their bloody lives in the private sector. Who the bloody hell are they to say this? Sorry. End of rant.
Yeah, I know that's absolutely true. But fortunately now with France, if they elect like a Le Pen government, I mean the issue of us ever opening accession talks, it's going to be ridiculous and a non-starter.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get like a proper. We still don't know where VMRO will fall in this relationship because the side effect of the fact that the European moderate conservatives, the EPP, are so weak they're losing countries they used to control, have governments in Spain, in Germany, in France, in Italy, and in the UK, well, it was still part. Now they barely managed to have like a government in Poland, even this with a lot of heavy lifting from Brussels and Washington attacking the proper conservative government of Poland and becoming liberals and worse in the process. But one of the bigger countries in the EPP now are Greece and Bulgaria. So, because they lost all the proper countries. They kicked Hungary out. So now we might have a problem with them.
Yeah.
Hungary is announcing, is pleading with the French not to argue with the Germans, to form like a proper, unified, proper right-wing bloc, which would include Meloni, Le Pen, the Polish PIS party, which is under heavy assault in Poland now.
Yes.
Slovakia, Hungary, all the good, right-wing parties, and VMRO would naturally belong there. But it's unlikely that all these countries will be able to, the Germans and the French put away their differences, and the Poles aligning with Le Pen or Orban, who are not gung-ho on Russia. So it's possible we don't get a tectonic change in the parliament, but enough countries change sides that, it's at the national level that we cannot continue pretending anymore, and we have to begin to take matters seriously. Even in the UK, I mean the right is not losing. You put their votes together, Reform and the Tories. They're pretty close to the Liberals, but they'll get destroyed in the first past the post system.
Yeah.
And it's all about the migration. It's all about the fact
is.
that they didn't deliver on the migration issue, and they're pushing on the country war against Russia. Instead, they want to dominate the Black Sea with their navy, and they have all these boats crossing the channel at will. So I don't know.
You mean the dinghies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I honestly think for the EU, and this will play a big part in our elections here, the whole illegal immigration issue is has really got people ticked off, and rightly so. I think that is a bigger issue than what's going on in Ukraine. The Middle East, Israel, Gaza is also playing in, I think, to a degree, but I think it's immigration and of course the economy. It's always the economy. When it comes, people always vote their pocketbooks. And inflation. I haven't looked at inflation numbers for the EU as a whole or the various countries of Europe, but here it's still persistently high, and people know that. People remember that. They may not be thinking on a day-to-day basis about who's shooting who in what countries around the world, but when they go to the grocery store and they look at the price of eggs and the price of milk and fill up their car with gasoline, that they know, and they remember what it was like, at least speaking here from when Donald Trump was president. So, and I think those are the two driving issues in the West, Europe and in the West. And we haven't even talked about Canada. I always forget about what's going on there because they got a far left government there. But I know that the Canadians are getting tired of Pretty Boy Trudeau. So
Yeah.
So we'll see.
But we need the U.S. and we need Trump to win, and we need him to be serious this time, focused and on the job from day one, which he says he will be. Otherwise, it will all be for nothing. Like we'll just continue in cruise control down the downward slope. But we need you guys to get serious about it, and everything else is just to pass the time until November.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are. We're already a third of the way through June. School is out there soon in Macedonia, and then people are focused on, while the government is forming, people are focused on vacations in July and August. So things are gonna, as it heats up, people are gonna tune out of the political sphere, political circus, which is good, I think. Again, less drama is what we need. So let's do this. Let's wait and see what the new government, how that forms, and who's got what positions and things like that, and kind of reconvene before the silliness, the craziness of July starts, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, good catching up with you, Cvetin.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Take care.
You too.